the government is developing a new digital ID system as per Bill Shorten, but it must gain the public's trust. This is what Toby Murray has written in his particular article. He mentions Trust Exchange, which was announced by Bill Shorten earlier this week, is what the federal government is developing as a new digital ID and credential system, which would incorporate existing data the federal government has into the system so that they can identify people. Ben, can you please help us meander through this and exactly where this direction is going with the government and what they want to achieve by this?
Well, they've put someone in charge of what's the call? Getting the public's trust. Somebody who made a disaster of the NDIS. I just can't believe it.
Sorry, I just can't stop laughing. That was
it is a comedy at this point. You don't know whether to think it's a comedy or a tragedy. But from a technical point of view, just looking at it on the surface, I've only briefly gone over it, and obviously I haven't seen the actual app or what they're actually trying to do, like on a technical level. But from what I've heard about it so far, is he talks about a token-based system. Now, I have spoken to MPs before about this particular system they were looking at bringing in, which they believe removes any of the problems associated with the exchange of a digital ID, the threat to privacy and all this sort of things that they think that this token-based system is going to solve. And I'm like, you idiots. You're technically illiterate because a token is a hacker's dream. That's like, great, I don't need to even look for anything. I just steal the token. I mean, if you have... everyone's done this, right? If you go home tonight and you open your web browser, look at your emails, okay? Unplug your internet. Wow, my emails don't work anymore. Plug your internet back in. Hey, my emails work. I didn't have to sign back in. That's because of the token that's associated with it. In layman's terms, that's what it is. It's a token that's associated with that login. Now, what a hacker will do, steal the token, load it in their browser, they can access it. You know, there are certain factors built into the security where it can become harder if it's linked to checking the IP address and all that sort of stuff if it's been transferred. But ultimately, tokens can be stolen. So I'm just going, out of everything you could have chosen, this is probably one of the worst systems you could have chose. You know, and it's not going to, and they talk, oh, it's encrypted. They talk about all this nonsense. And I go, mate, they've hacked into the Pentagon. I mean, you're talking about things that aren't going to work when you look at payment systems. As I've said before, credit card payment systems. You go and enter your credit card details to buy something online. How come your credit card's not getting swiped and stolen when you buy it? Because it opens up, sends the details down, verifies, and boom, it's done. That's what they need to do with the digital deed, not with a token, because a token is easier to steal and replicate. You don't have to confirm details. You don't have to worry if it's you've got the correct ID, for example. All you need to do is get the token. So
there's a few things to unpack, but yeah, you're right. I think when it comes to security, especially cybersecurity, you really want to make sure that you have the least amount of concentration. You know, creating a digital ID register where you're like literally opening it up to hackers saying, look, I've put it all in one place for you.
Centralization, right? It's a treasure trove of data.
How has that been going? Like Optus and all the rest of it. How's it been going for all these different other companies? It hasn't. And now we want to have all our details, everything in the one system.
Yeah, it's scary. But look, I'm very familiar with sort of ID verification, biometrics, all this kind of stuff because, you know, in my line of work, every lender these days, you know, to avoid, you know, in the old days, you used to have to go and get your ID verified by a justice of peace and things like that. And, you know, just because we were doing it so often, I went and became a JP and, you know, clients who I need to verify the ID, I do the stamp and all that kind of stuff. You know, technology is moving forward. You know, we used to have banking and, you know, I think if you talk to a lot of people, they would have said that I'd never trust an online banking system. I'd never transfer money through the internet. But, you know, technology is moving forward. So my view is it shouldn't be done by the government. I think if we're going to have a digital ID system, you can't trust the government to do that. They are the worst at executing anything. And, you know, they'll spend, like I think they said it was going to cost 12 million. I promise you, record this, clip it. There is zero chance they get it done for $12 million or whatever the original number that was promised. It's going to end up costing maybe 5 times that because they just don't know how to manage that. But just going back to it, you know, you have a trust-based system. I think security should be multi-factor. You know, you're seeing a lot of efficacy on two-step authenticators, things like, SMS codes, now cybersecurity experts and even hackers, they'll tell you that those things can be exploited because you can do a port on someone's mobile number. If you know the right information about somebody, you can port their mobile number without their permission because, Optus or whoever it else is doing might have these secret questions about you, and if they know the certain information, they can port the number from them to you and get the SMS code and then get into your banking. Happened to my father-in-law. So quick tip is like if you are with a telco company, call and make sure you've got a port lock set up. But then multi-factor authentication can be great. Think centralizing a digital ID system, as much as they'll talk about it trying to be, let's move with the times, it's really a mechanism of control for them. And that's the problem I think most people have. They'll say that it's going to be a system that makes everything easy for everybody, give you access to multiple services, and it's totally voluntary. But we already know with like direct...
For how long?
But the thing is, when they say voluntary, it's not really, if you want to access government grants, if you want to access anything to do with, the government, if you want to get certain rebates and things like that, you need to subscribe. And it's like, well, this is going to be, I really don't have a choice because it's either my business gets this grant that, makes my business viable and helps me invest in research and development, etc., or I have to comply with this. And so it's not much of a choice. It's not voluntary. And that's the problem, people. You can't have trust when somebody's giving you effectively coercion. That the trust comes from giving it as an option and letting it speak for itself.
That's exactly right. And you're going to have problems with the elderly who have no idea about how to create a digital ID. I mean, that's a real issue as well. There's quite a significant amount of older people.
And not to mention old people that are technically illiterate. I mean, there's people who have a lot of trouble with technology for whatever reason. Not everyone's going to be good at it. It's just a way of life. It's not. I know from a very deep technical level about IT, computers, devices, and it is a difficult area. It's not something that's easy, and the problem is it keeps getting more complicated because of the fact it's expanded so fast. They need to bring more people in. These people aren't like the old school people who created all of the early tech. These people make it more complicated than it needs to be, especially in the coding side, because they think, I need to make it look good. I need to make it look like I'm doing my job. And that's the problem. It's dragged out and become more complicated than it needs to be. So you have that problem too. People who are going to struggle with the basic stuff. And that opens a door too. That opens a door to them becoming victims of cybercrime because they don't understand the technical nature. Like, for example, people make their password on their Wi-Fi really easy, or like they use the standard password. They don't go and actually put a new password on it. And there's actually been password lists that were released a long time ago now, but there was one called Netgear Poon or something like that. And basically, Netgear, when they released their routers, would have a set code of how their passwords were. All the passwords were different for every router, but it was, 3 digits of letters, a color or something like that, like a word, like green or red or something, and then it was a set of numbers, a certain character set, like 4 numbers or something like that. So someone figured that out, got the lists from Netgear of every combination of their password, made into a password list, because you could sit there and crack a Netgear password if they've used the default password. So this is the technical things that people in the community aren't aware of. So if you've got that happening in the community, what's going to happen when you get hackers and they're going to, use this to their advantage to steal someone's digital ID, use it to steal their entire life, not just their entire life, they're going to use it to open bank accounts galore because they don't need anything except this trust system that they've got. And then you're going to see huge implications happen. Like we're going to see money laundering. You're going to
terrorism financing, all of it. And that's what, a lot of the lenders use these biometric systems now and liveness checks, because, I was to my story before about, you used to have to get it certified by a JP. Now they send a link to the client, and I've done these before. And, they do the liveness check on your face and make you move side to side and up and down. But I've already seen people using generative AI be able to beat these liveness checks.
Ben mentioned that last time.
Yeah, I've actually passed it. I was able to bypass it, all facial recognition. I've had people show that to me, that system. See, it makes me look like I'm a real person. I go, it ain't hard to do that on the screen. It's not hard. Up and down, they can do all sorts of things. Like they have heads now through AI. You take a photo of someone, you put it up, it makes a moving head. You can tell it what to do. Up and down, left and right, it'll do it.
It was the number one trending on GitHub is a open sourced AI face, what do you call it? Like where they superimpose, they took one of Elon and they took his face and put it on a random guy. It was a webcam and he was just like moving around. He looked like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And that's when you actually can't understand whether you're listening to somebody who's genuine or not. I mean, we're heading into some interesting times. We really are. There's going to come a time when we really won't know whether our news feeds are genuine, the people we're talking to over an internet Zoom call is a genuine person.
Look at the biometrics. If you look at all these biometrics we're seeing today, like fingerprint, facial recognition, iris scan, all these sorts of things, and voice recognition. All that was being used in the top facilities around the world in like the 90s. That was like all those type of biometrics are being used then. But then the question comes, so this is like 30, 40-year-old technology. What are those people using now? They ain't really using a lot of that. They're using far more sophisticated things that they see your mannerisms, they see your gait of your walk, all these very advanced biometric mechanisms in your body. And they have computer systems that focus on that now because they know fingerprints can be forged. They know facial recognition can be forged, iris scans. They know all these things can be forged now. And it's becoming easier because it's more available to everyone. It's now become easier to actually forge all of that stuff.
Ben, I've got a question from an audience member. They're wondering